Good evening, members. Welcome to this evening's overview and scrutiny. Item 1, apologies. We've received apologies from Norma, from Alex, and James has said he is running late. Does anyone else have any other apologies? No? Okay, thank you. Item 2, minutes of the meeting on the 8th of November. Are all members happy that it's a true and accurate record? Can I have a proposer, please? Suzanne, seconded. Chris. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Item 3, Chairman's announcements. Got a few announcements. Firstly, I apologise for the previous meeting being cancelled. That was due to certain things not arriving on time, some of which were not our doing. I would also like to move items 5 and 8 forward because I think they're going to be quite simple ones, and then I think the item 7 will be the one that probably will take up most time. So if everyone's happy, can we move items 5 and 8 forward? Yeah, wonderful. So Hermione.
Number 5 is pretty high on the agenda anyway, but
sorry, no, it's I was, yeah, so I'm only moving number 8, so you're correct.
So you mean moving 6 and
6 is no longer on the agenda.
yes, no, okay.
So I'll be moving from item 8 to number 7, number 7 to number 8. You're right, 5 is already high enough up. Thank you. I think everyone was happy with that. Item 4, declaration. Oh, sorry, before I forget, I must welcome the county councillors who are joining us for item, what will now be item 8. So welcome to Eric, Calvin, Bob, and Graham, and Jan is here as well. So welcome to everyone. Declaration of, sorry, Diane, declaration of interest.
No, it was before that. I was trying to catch your attention, Chairman. I just really wanted to say, I'm not the only one, but we'd all like to thank you for your chairmanship skills. Thank you very much. You've done a good job, and I'd like to have that recorded for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That means I'll make mistakes now because I'm getting but thank you very much. Declaration of interest. Does anyone have any declarations? No. In which case, if we can go to item 5, the information governance and data protection policies. We've done the minutes. Yeah. Who's doing this one? The information governance. Yeah. Yeah. Who's proposing it? There's obviously a report on information governance. Does anybody have any questions on it? Suzanne.
I haven't got so much of a question, Chairman. It's just that we're going to be having a new council fairly soon. And I think this is one of the areas where new members can be tripped up very quickly with devastating results for the reputation of the council if they do contravene GDPR. So I would just like it noted that it would be a very good idea to have very early training in this for new members.
Yep, no, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. So if there's no questions, there is a recommendation on page 17, which is recommendation A. Could we have a proposer, please? Hermione, seconded. Suzanne. And can I have a show of hands? Everyone's happy with the recommendation. I think that's carried unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we will bring item 8, REPA, forward. And I don't know who's going to be doing this one. James isn't with us this evening. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions, comments on the REPA report. It's something that comes in front of us on a regular basis. So it's just, there is one recommendation. So there's 2 recommendations. It's just an updated report. So is Hermione.
Thank you, Chairman. I propose we accept the report.
Thank you very much. Is that seconded, David Snowden? All those in favour of the two recommendations? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we can get on to the one that I think most people are going to be here for, which is the air quality management plan. Graham, do you want to present the paper?
Yeah, I've got a presentation, 4 slides to go. I take it the paper is read by everybody prior to this because you've had a pre-meet and submitted questions. If we can put the presentation up, please. John, you may have to, yeah. And it will be up in YouTube, I've been advised. Could I just, while this is taking place, on the paper in front of you this evening, there's 2 recommendations. Recommendation A is the members scrutinise the council's work in relation to air quality and more specifically the 3 air quality management areas so as to consider the extent to which a council is using available resources to have a positive impact on public health, with any comments passed to the executive member for environmental sustainability, and B, members scrutinise the council's work in relation to air quality so as to consider the extent to which a council is fulfilling its statutory obligations with regards to the 3 air quality management areas, with any comments passed to the executive member for environmental sustainability. Thank you. Timely intervention. Right. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. If we can go into the next slide, which we have done, I felt it's important to actually put this slide up because the 3 slides that you've got in your pack didn't actually maybe represent the true scale of the reduction in air pollution with the Nice Hearts. So in the document, the went back to 2017. Here we've gone back to 2014, where you can see the figures were really high and they're actually dropping down considerably to the pandemic level, where they've maintained and decreased, which is really good. Bishop Stortford, I will sort of go into in the next slide, but you can see Hertford now is not really an AQMA. It's actually fallen below an AQMA. Now, for it to be revoked, the AQMA has got to fall below the 40 mark for 3 consecutive years, minus 10%. So it's got to be 36 for a continual 3 years. And I'm sure there'll be ripples in the way, as you know, of all passages in life. And Sobridgeworth, as you can see, that is on a downward spiral as well, which is really good. Now, if we can move on to the next slide. Now, here we go. On this slide, we've got where it started off in 2013 and where it is currently, the lines going from left to right. The bar graphs on grey are actually houses that's been developed in each of the consecutive years. So we used 2013 as a year there was no houses. Then each consecutive year it's gone up and it's just below 1,400 houses. cumulative. Now, if we go back to 2007, when there was really no developments in Bishop Stortford, I think St Michael's Mead was being developed on the other side of town. The housing numbers were 2000, sorry, for a minute, just bear with me. Population increase, right. The population increase in Bishop Stortford from 2007 to 2021 was 5,183. The number of houses was 2,720. Now, if we convert the houses, 2,720, into vehicles per household, the average figure for a vehicle in East Hearts, one of the highest in the country, is 1.45 vehicles per household, and from 2007 to 2021 would make it 3,944 additional vehicles in Bishop Stortford. If we move on to school admissions, increased from 2007 to autumn 2022 from 8,152 to 9,951, an increase of 1,799 or 22% increase. Now that's a substantial increase. Now if we break that down further, the Hearts and Essex School has increased by 478. Anglo Cockerell has increased by 176, which is a total of 654 additional students in an RQMA area. And if we add Birchwood in, that increases by an additional 392 up to 1,046. And you can see that the trend is still downward. Right, that's that one. If we can move on to the next slide. So, achievements. On the top left-hand side, we've changed the fleet. The switch to Nissan Leaf cars will reduce the council's carbon footprint by 9 tonnes of CO2 each year and cut leasing costs. The fleet consists of 5 Nissan Leaf vehicles, which will be used across East Hearts by council officers involved in services such as fly tipping, enforcement, parks, inspections, leisure. Bottom left-hand side, taxi policy. We have the strictest taxi policy in the county. And from 1st of April 2023, new vehicles will not be licensed if they are more than 5 years old or do not meet or exceed the Euro 6 emission standards. Also, as chair of the Hertfordshire Climate Change Sustainability Partnership, I've also put a paper through just a couple of weeks ago for a county-wide taxi low emission policy, which will mirror East Hearts policy, but it's up to each of the 10 district boroughs to impose that. We've got the LC Whip, top right hand, stage 1, working with HCC. We've got the sustainability planning document introduced in March 2021. We've got live monitor in Gascoigne Way, and we're going to have 5 new mobile air monitors coming on board in the next few months between East Hearts and County Council. We've got the climate change strategy document there, and also it's all down to behaviour change. Everybody playing their part in changing how they travel and what they do. The last slide, please. Right, the next step, the Air Quality Action Plan. The new AQAP will be sent to the exec by early 2024. Then it will be sent to DEFRA for approval. Once approved by DEFRA, the executive member through delegated authority from the executive will need to formally adopt the action plan. And not forgetting, East Hearts were very successful, and gratitude to the officers for getting a grant of £126,408 from the government. And that will go to education, schools, businesses, air quality monitors and various other bits and pieces. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I know we have got some questions from members. I know Chris has got quite a few, but so what I'd prefer to do is to go to a couple more people and then come to you, because I think we'll be with you for some time. So Mary, I think you had a question.
What number is it?
Um,
Can we do them in order or?
If you wish, but then
Yeah.
I think we're going to be with Chris for quite a long time.
Yeah, if she reads out the number of the question, yeah.
Have we got the? I think it is the first one. Do you want to go, Mary?
yes, I was just inquiring, I could abbreviate the question. I was just wondering when these readings were taken, are they taken basically at the same time? Are they averaged out over the day? Do we know, does it peak at rush hour when children are coming home, people are coming home from work? I wasn't sure of that.
Thank you, Graham. Question
Yeah,
is question one.
Yeah, no, I understand where Mary's coming from. The key point, yes. This aspect of air pollution is considered. From the recent detailed air quality modelling work that has been carried out, no exceedances over the hourly national air quality objectives were seen across the district outside of the curbside itself. This would mean that people would only be exposed when crossing roads, which would not take them longer than an hour to do so, and therefore would not hit the exposure limits. And we will continue to help drive improvements in air quality, especially at peak times, through a number of initiatives such as anti-idling and the work through the DEFRA grant with schools.
Thank you, Mary. Have you got a sub?
No, thank you very much.
No. Okay. The next one is question 3, which is combined, and it's on behalf of Suzanne, Holly, and Ian Devonshire. I don't know who wants to read it out, or do you want me to read it out on your behalfs? Holly, we'll let you read it out.
So this is question 3. School traffic generates a lot of traffic and pollution. Would Herts County Council consider providing more buses in an effort to reduce more cars on the road? And would the County Council consider staggering start times of schools in an effort to reduce cars on the road and so reduce pollution?
Right, yeah, thank you, Holly. Bus services are commercially operated and operators are struggling to provide viable services in part due to low patronage. Increasing the uptake of bus usage would require behavioural change, which forms part of the DEFRA grant, money recently awarded to East Hearts Council. The County Council only operate a handful of schools across the district. Most are operated as independent businesses. Therefore, the scope for change in school opening times is extremely limited, but the schools would be able to set their own times if they so wish to do that.
Do any of the 3 people who had similar questions have any supplementaries, Ian?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I kind of don't agree with what you say where there's no patronage, because before 2019 the buses were absolutely full and HCC stopped that service for people who are paying for it. As far as I understand, they only transport pupils who are qualified for free travel, and therefore people who pay for it don't get that choice, and therefore we have to use our cars. So instead of 40 children on a bus, you've got 40 cars going into each school every day and coming home from each school in the evening. Thank you.
Yeah, the County Council supplies transport for those that's eligible for free travel. The bus routes, the main bus routes are there for the children to go to school. So the county council won't be laying on additional buses because it's not a county council, whatever, it's for private operators. And I think it's worthwhile pointing out that the patronage on buses has dropped considerably since COVID. It's not picking up. It's in the County Council Transport Report 2022. So yeah, passenger figures are dropping and they're finding it extremely difficult to recover. Throughout the county of Hertfordshire, bus routes operators are dropping services because they just can't afford to run them.
Thank you. Next question is question 4, Diane.
Thank you, Chairman. Do you want me to read all my questions out in one?
The one I've got here is
Quite a few which I sent you and Graham.
these are the pre ones. You can ask the other ones later. This is question 4. Do you want me to read that out on your behalf, or the one that Graham's aware of?
You can do, but does it tally with the list that I sent to you of questions?
No, this is the ones that Graham. You can ask them later on, but these are the ones that Graham is aware of.
Okay.
So
Graham is aware of these as well, Chairman. So
yeah, but
you're leading, I'll
yeah.
follow.
Question 4 is: there has been an increase in pollution as a result of roadworks in Bishop Stortford, but there is less traffic in certain areas. Are the authorities considering the serious impact this has on people with lung disorders?
The data available to the council has not seen an adverse impact on air quality through roadworks. The county council must provide reasonable access to the highways to fix and renew and extend the utility company's infrastructure. And we've got no sort of record of increased air quality, poor air quality.
Okay, Diane, do you have any supplementary before I bring Eric in? No, Eric, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, thanks, Chairman. Obviously, it's not just Bishop Stortford. As somebody who lives on the 1184 in Sawbridgeworth, it's a really serious problem. And there isn't, because utility companies are statutory undertakers, there isn't anything that can be done. As soon as they cite an emergency, so it could be a water leak, a gas leak, an electricity problem, a telecoms problem, they are allowed to turn up and give notice to the county council within 2 hours. So it is an ongoing problem. I think the issue is our aging infrastructure underneath our main highways. And unfortunately, it causes really serious problems, not just for air quality, but, you know, I've seen it where businesses are saying it's affecting them because people are not turning up for appointments. But there isn't anything that can be done because they have a statutory right to turn up. So it's one of those really difficult things. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
On that point, what's actually happened with network management now is for the past few months they've been really strict with the utility companies and any other companies that's doing roadwork. So take, for example, this week in Bishop Stortford or next week, there's 3 subcontractors operating under one road closure, it's utility and that ringway as well, and they've got to work extended hours. So instead of that actually being closed over 2 weeks, it's now been closed over 1 week. And they've previously with the Haddam Road, they asked the utility companies to extend the hours that they're working to cut back on the road closure. So a lot of work's been actually done on getting the utility companies when they do go in there, especially in Bishop Stortford.
Thank you. Next one is question 5, and there's similar questions from Ian, Kemp and Mynie. I know you've got another question in a minute, Ian, so can I ask Mynie to read this one out? Mynie, do you want to read out question 5? No. Do you want me to read it out on your behalf? I'll read it out on both your behalves. Can the council ask the active monitoring be introduced in Bishop Stortford and where to establish how bad the levels are?
Yes. DEFRA grant will be used to fund more mobile automatic monitors, as I mentioned earlier, 5, to help monitor changes in air pollution throughout the day. We know from current monitoring there are some exceedances of the national air quality objectives within Bishop Stortford, within the AQMA. No exceedances have been found in Wales.
Do either of you two have supplementaries or both? Ian?
Yes, when you say that so no exceedances have been found in where has the monitoring been done in where? Because I'm aware of 2 existing measurements which are down on Viaduct Road and therefore well out of the town centre and no others.
Yeah, could I ask Claire to?
So there are monitors in the town centre in Ware, which have been there since, I think 2018 I installed them, so potentially 2018 partial year data, 2019 full year data.
Okay, and are those again of the type which cumulatively collect and you measure them at the end of the year?
Miney?
Thank you, Chairman. Could I ask, where are they situated in Bishop Stortford?
It's on the website. You'll get the details on the website of where each monitor is situated.
Okay,
It's graphically illustrated.
okay, but you're not able to tell me tonight.
Well, it's on Stansted Road, it's on Dunmore Road, it's on London Road and Hockrell Road.
Yes. All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
But
Okay.
yeah, and they're placed at different distances, but it's all explained on the website.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We are going to get to you in a minute, Chris, don't worry. The next one is Diane. We've got 2 questions from you. Do you want me to read them out so you know which ones, or do you know which ones they are? Yeah, but these are the ones that we had at the pre-meeting, so yeah. So use of charges in Framhall Avenue near Stansted Airport, how will these be organised and who will use the 70 places? And the report says that Bureau Veritas is responsible for a lot of air pollution, whereas the data. I believe, Jan, you're going to answer the first one, is that correct? Or is Graham going to answer both?
I'll answer the
Graham's
charge.
answer both,
Yeah,
okay.
the charges are owned and operated by Stansted Airport, and it'll just be like going into a normal filling station that you drive your vehicle in, plug in, and that's it.
And the second part?
All right, the council welcomes any work by our partners in and around the district that will help to improve air quality in East Hearts.
Do you have any supplementary on that one, Diane? No. Question 7, Ian Kemp, do you know what your question was? Or?
Actually, could I ask a general question, Mr. Chairman? These questions that were brought up in the pre-meeting, in the past they have been circulated to members of the committee so that we could scrutinise them before the actual meeting itself. I can't trace having received those questions. It looks to me from the blank faces around as if most of us have not received those. Right. This is making it very difficult for us to
I understand, yeah,
and to actually follow this. Could I check whether this was circulated, and if not, why not? Because that's a change of procedure from previously.
Yeah.
And it means we can't check the content of our questions as well.
Yeah, you're quite right, Councillor Kemp. I didn't circulate them on this occasion. I did forward them to the chairman. My apologies for that. The normal procedure will resume next time. You have my apologies.
Thank you. In which case I will have to ask the
Yeah,
chairman
no,
to read
that's
my
fine. I
question
wasn't,
out to me because I don't have it in front of me.
no, that's a fair comment. I wasn't aware that members hadn't actually received them. Question 7, has the council considered low-cost alternatives to dynamic monitoring?
Yeah, we are aware that there are a range of monitors available on the internet which claim to monitor air pollution, but have not been approved by DEFRA. We need to ensure the data collected meets stringent guidelines for collecting air quality data to ensure it is scientifically sound and will be accepted by DEFRA. We therefore use a whole network of diffusion tubes which offer the lowest cost possible solution to monitor air pollution levels.
Ian, have you got a supplementary on that?
I think a supplementary on that is I'm still a little confused at Graham's answer to a previous question regarding these other types of monitors that might be installed, which sounded as if they might be dynamic monitors. Are they dynamic monitors?
Yeah, they are.
So in
Yeah,
fact,
they're
there are
live
some
monitoring,
new
the-
low cost.
The mobile monitors, it won't be a fixed one like it's in Hartfield. So you can go to school and sort of monitor it for an hour, that type of thing, yeah.
Okay, so we now will have mobile dynamic
Yeah, yeah.
monitors that, okay, they need somebody to take them round, but that will fill in a very important gap. Thank you.
Not in the next few weeks, but shortly.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
sure that you can liaise with the team.
Thank you. Chris, I believe you have got some copies of your questions, have you? Yeah. So it's over to you from question 8.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the first one, what action, if any, has the council taken to lobby for the HERT, that's Herts Essex Rapid Transit, to be extended to Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth, given the need for more sustainable transport available in the towns, that should be, and as Bishop Stortford is the fastest growing town in Hertfordshire?
Yeah, the Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth are already served by good public transport links, rail and bus, going north to south and vice versa. The extension of Hart to Bishop Stortford has never been ruled out, but would be a longer term plan should it be needed.
Do you have a supplementary on that one?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay. You want to move on to number 9? Oh, sorry, Eric.
Thank you. I was just going to add that, just to continue with what Graham said, there is already a very good bus service because of the routes from Stansted through to Harlow and so on. But I think the Hart has always been envisaged to be a hub and spoke situation. So
East to west.
yeah, east to west on the main routes. But that doesn't mean to say that there won't be a transit possibility. So with a bus service already good from Stansted, Bishop Stortford, Sawbridgeworth through to Harlow, it's perfectly possible then to have connections that work and routing and timetables. So I don't see it being a particular issue, but it's a very, very big conceptual situation anyway. So it's going to take a few years because there's the outline business case and looking for funding, and it may not all come at once. It's very unlikely to. It will potentially be in stages. Thank you.
Yeah, Essex County Council have got a concept as well from Colchester to Stansted Airport, and they see the benefit of moving in with Hertfordshire on getting funds for the infrastructure, etc. And they're quite keen for it to go from Stansted Airport to Bishop Stortford on to Harlow. But as Eric says, it's a concept at this stage.
Okay, thank you. Chris, I think you want to come back.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's encouraging, but I would say that the existing bus service is an existing bus service, so you're not adding anything extra by using a bus service already there. And secondly, at the moment, I can speak from personal experience in my family that my son works at Stansted Airport and he has abandoned taking the bus because there's so much traffic that there's no point in taking the bus anymore and takes the train instead, even though it's more expensive. So we can't have a bus service unless we have bus lanes that's effective, unless we have bus lanes that use that.
I can see 2 people want to answer, Eric and then
Yeah.
Graham.
I think that comment has really highlighted the issue, because where are you going to put a bus lane in between Bishop Stortford and Harlow? The road space just isn't there. So it's unlikely to be operating, and it won't take away the issue of traffic, because the Hart would then be stuck in the same traffic as everybody else. So that you need to bear that in mind in terms of any active travel or any sustainable travel, that we're limited by our local infrastructure. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Graham, did you want to add something?
Yeah, there is congestion on the road, as sort of Eric mentioned. We've got the roadworks M11 Junction 8, which I believe was going to be completed by the end of spring, but it looks like summer now. But the bus service from Harlow to Bishop Sawbridgeworth to Bishop Stortford to Stansted runs every 12 minutes during the day, up to every 12 minutes. So there's a very frequent bus service, 508, 59, 510. The timetable's on the website.
Thank you very much for that.
I'm aware of the timetable, but trust me, there is more than half an hour many times where there's no bus because of the lack of buses and because of the congestion.
Okay, do you want to ask your next question? Question 9.
Yes. Sorry, just checking. The study detailed in the report has stated that the main cause of air pollution at Hockrell is diesel-powered passenger journeys. Do we have details yet of where these journeys are to and from? And if not, will we have such detail before we finalise the new air quality action plan? This would relate also to other parts of the district, including other towns in the district.
Yeah, the work commissioned by the council will not be determining the type of journeys through the air quality management areas. We are aware, however, that our partners at HEC do monitor traffic movement and will be using this data to inform the actions within the air quality action plan. My understanding, without having seen anything, is that the majority of traffic, if we're speaking about Bishop Stortford, is local traffic.
Do you have a supplementary on that one, or do you want to move to your next?
No, I'll go to the next question. Thank you.
Okay.
There is a presumption that the new developments around Bishop Stortford since the district plan, presumption that new developments that have been built around Bishop Stortford since the district plan was adopted have not had an impact due to the pollution levels found in 2021. Firstly, do you agree that even if pollution levels are lower or the same as they were in 2018 at Hockrell, this does not mean development has had no impact? If developments were not there, it is possible we would no longer have an ACMA at Hockrell. Secondly, do you agree we can't make any such judgment until we get actual measures of air pollution from 2022? And I wanted to just add that looking at the chart that you helpfully provided earlier, if you looked at the chart, 2019 figures, the pollution went upwards from 2018. So an upward trend until 2020, which of course coincided with the pandemic. 2021, we still had a lot of pandemic level traffic. So we don't know that that trend is actually due to the pandemic rather than due to any other factors such as cleaner air in cars. So my point being, we need to know the 2022 levels before we know what the trend, what is behind the trend, and if the trend is what we think it is from your figures earlier.
Yeah, there's no presumption that the new developments in and around Bishop Stortford have not impacted the pollution levels in the AQMA. From the available data and graphs presented to members earlier, we can see that despite the number of new homes increasing, the pollution levels have continued to drop. And there's been substantial developments.
But in 2019, when it was non-pandemic traffic, we had an increase.
I think in 2019, there was a sort of blip. I'm not sure whether it was the way the government calculated the figures, whatever. Claire, are you able to sort of...
Can you put your microphone on, please?
I think nationally, there's a few years that you can see that there's an increase in air pollution caused by a number of different factors, but 2019 was one of them.
You just ask what those factors were.
If I may, I was just going to come in and help on that. I think the way that those figures, just to be clear, the way that those figures are calculated are readings are taken continuously throughout the year. They are then subject to a calculation figure that is applied by DEFRA, and they are applied across the country, taking account of a whole host of factors. They take into account, oh my goodness, there's a whole host of things to do with atmospheric conditions during the year, average temperatures during the year, and such like. And we have to wait for those. That's why there's always a time lag of these data coming through, because we have to wait for those national figures to come through to then calculate our raw data. I think the reality is, and none of us obviously, you know, the figures were there that Councillor McAndrew was displaying. Yeah, over a long period there will be fluctuations, and there was indeed an upward from 2018 to 2019, and one could delve into the figures, as Claire was saying. I think there were some national factors in that. I think where the data that's been presented, we are obliged through the AQAs to do that every year and look at those trends over time. And the point being as well that that quite rightly in the national discussion that my team and colleagues are involved in is that, you know, one couldn't reliably rely on those COVID years to make major judgments on. However, that is within a context of year on year. since 2014, 2013, 2014, down and down the trend. And we will indeed see, and we all wait to see what the 2022 figures are.
Thank you. Eric, you want to come back with
Yeah,
something?
just to follow on from that, really, that a few weeks ago, the same day we had the Gilston DMC meeting here, there was a public health air quality meeting in Stevenage, so I couldn't go to that. Others of us were here as well, but I've got the slides. One of the things that we've done through Sustainable Hertfordshire is to look at some air quality modelling that we've done through the Sustainable Hertfordshire funding. And when you consider actually that over the next few years, the growth across the county, and including East Herts, is going to be quite considerable, it's going to be continuous. I'm looking at the projections now. So going back to 2014, and this was looking at St Albans at the time, but it's just comparative. So it was 227 milligrams per cubic meter. And the projection for 2030 is 78, and then 2036, 67. Now, clearly that's partly the reduction, I guess, is because of catalytic converters on cars up until today. But as more and more electric vehicles come onto the roads, then that will change. And hopefully also as people stop using open fires and log burners, because that's another severe
Log burners,
impact on air quality. But the trajectory is going to continue down according to the modelling that county have commissioned. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that applies for all AQMAs.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to next one, Chris? Oh, sorry, Calvin.
I was just going to say that I was at that seminar, and that's what the figures were with nitrous oxide. There is also, of course, the issue of particulates, which we haven't talked about at all today, which will continue even with electric vehicles. So that and the health issues around particulates are as severe and in some cases more severe than with nitrous oxide. So I think that's something that we need to bear in mind with this agenda going forward.
Yep, thank you. Chris, next question.
Why have we had live air quality monitors in Hertford, obviously Gascoigne away, for a few years, and none in Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth? Do you agree that we could have measured the impact of new developments on the towns more quickly and potentially put a halt or pause on development if we'd had live readings, obviously, that were concerning?
Yes, suitable air quality monitors are expensive and need a suitable location to be sited. The unit in Hertford was obtained as part of a specific grant funding some years ago. Our recent DEFRA bid will allow us to obtain a new mobile live air quality monitor, which can be deployed in Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth, which we mentioned earlier. While the live data is useful for behaviour change, for monitoring the impact of development, the data from NOx tubes is sufficient. The council would not be in a position to halt development based on 1 hour's bad air quality.
Do you have a supplementary on that, or do you want to? No, next one.
Has there been any evidence of increased walking, cycling and public transport use in East Herts in the time since the district plan was adopted? As the air quality section of the sustainability appraisal of the district plan states, mitigating the impacts of additional traffic within the town centres will also be reliant on the achievement of modal shift through successful take-up of the improved sustainable transport modes and the successful application of travel planning.
Right, yeah, thank you. The 2022 County Travel Survey, based on household questionnaires sent out to a sample of residents, identified around 61% of all journeys in East Herts district were made by car van, either as a driver or passenger. This compares to 70% of journeys in the equivalent 2018 survey. Behavioural change can be slow.
Chris, supplementary on.
I suppose that's two things. That was a county-wide survey. Have you got a more localised breakdown for East Herts? And the second thing is, I believe that I'm happy to be corrected.
This was in East Herts.
Oh, sorry, you said county survey.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry.
They did a travel survey, but in East Herts district were made by car and van. Yeah, the figures I
Okay,
gave
thank
you
you.
were for East Herts.
And the other question was, I can be corrected happily, but I think that bus use is extremely low in Hertfordshire, if not the lowest in the country.
bus use nationally is declining. You're
And is it
right,
worse
it's
here than
declining
elsewhere?
Nationally, not just in East Hants.
Next question.
Have we lobbied for a bypass to be built around Hertford? And would it be true to say that, unlike in Bishop Stortford, should really say a higher percentage of journeys that utilise Gascoigne Way are through journeys rather than journeys that terminate in the town? Do we have any data regarding this?
Yes, County Council actually consulted the residents on the possibility of a bypass around Hertford, and they were quite taken aback by the general feedback was not positive. They didn't want one. So a pre-COVID survey indicated that around 40% of the trips on Gascoigne Way were made through trips. 40% were through trips rather than 60%.
Thank you.
Bob, do you want to say anything as one of the county councillors for Hertford?
Thank you, John. I can't really add. I can elaborate. What Groma says is exactly right. I think the highways guys at the county council attended what the Americans would call a town hall meeting here. I think they were very taken aback at the reaction. There was quite a strong reaction from residents that they didn't want a bypass around Hertford.
Yeah, happy with that, Chris?
And I think you've got to take into consideration the readings that was on the graph earlier. The AQMA has dropped considerably in Hertford.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Will we be able to influence developers who are at or near planning approval stage to include cycle and walking routes that will be recommended in the forthcoming LCWIP plan? If not, this will result in developments potentially being built with less than optimum sustainable routes and will be much more costly to implement any LCWIP plans in these areas.
Right, no. Once completed, the LCWIP will be a material consideration in the determination of planning applications. The County Council's LTP, Local Transport Plan and Place and Movement Design Guide, places the onus on developers to consider provision for vulnerable users such as pedestrians and cyclists before those of private car users. My sort of project, the cycleway from Stansted, Bishop Stortford Tarlow to Rye House, has now been sort of designed, and it will be released after the the elections, and it will go out to each of the appropriate county councillors en route, and that can be used as a stepping stone to say to developers, look, here's a project and we need money to sort of do part of that, which goes through Bishop Stortford, which goes through Sawbridge Walk, etc., etc. Yeah.
I think Eric wants to say something, then I'll ask if you've got a supplementary, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I'm the district and county councillor for the Gilston and Hunsdon area and been involved with that project over a number of years. And I can say that the planning approval that's now happened for villages 1 to 6 includes a very high modal share, shift share of 60% within the development. So all of those sustainable travel, active travel will then be built into that, and it's 50% from the developments to the outside world and through onto Harlow. So all of those things are being built in. The other thing I wanted to add about LC whips, because I think there's some concern around, now we haven't had one yet, but actually a lot of the work, the input that will go into the LC whip's already been done, because across county, including in the Bishop Stortford area, Sawbridge, Hertford and Ware and so on, we've had growth and transport plans, and these have a number of potential interventions, the funding of which can come either from Section 106 or from government funding, but these are all listed. So a lot of the work is already there, and that will feed into the LC whip process as it's done. So it's not starting from scratch. So there's a lot of work already happened on that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary in that, Chris?
It's really that my main concern is that I take the point on Gilston completely. I think it's looking pretty good sustainability wise in terms of cycle routes, but there's other developments where at the moment cycle routes are not optimal in my view. And we have this tool of the LC whip saying where we want cycle routes to be and walking routes. And if we let the developer or if the developers proceed and don't have those cycle routes, we've missed an opportunity. So it's about how much leverage and all the leverage work in these developments that are ongoing and about to come to fruition. And can we stop them before they build on things which would be cycle routes otherwise?
Right, I must say I was successful with Bishop Stortford South in getting a 4 metre wide cycleway east to west right through the heart of the development. I was also successful in getting a 3 to 4 metre wide cycleway on Whittington Way running the length of the development, and various other sort of cycleways round about the site. So if you get in early enough, you can influence it.
Thank you. Next question, I think we're on, is this question 14, is it? Just so as we all know that it's coming to an end soon and that we'll have the open session. Are we at 18 already, are we?
What number are we on?
Question 18, I think. 17, okay.
16.
So we'll go back to 16, Chris.
Oh, too many. As anecdotally, the worst traffic in Hockrell is around the time of the school runs. What evidence is there that motor traffic from Stansted Airport there significantly contributes to the worst air pollution at Hockrell? Will it not be better to concentrate on traffic to and from schools?
East Lancs Council will be focusing on behavioural change initiatives such as anti-idling work with the schools with the funding that we actually got. Our recent DEFRA grant explicitly working with schools and AQMAs, and members are well placed to use their influence within the local community to encourage these behavioural change with schools and the wider community. Now, I mentioned earlier that the schools had a large increase round about the AQMA at Hockrell, Arts and Essex, and the Anglo-European and Birchwood. I looked on the website for a travel plan for the Arts and Essex. I couldn't find one. I went to, typed in various words and I come up with the sustainability plan. And in there, the word used was suggest. Students living within a mile radius walk. Suggest. Not encourage. But it seemed to be, they haven't entered into the spirit of students in an AQMA. And they've had a big increase of 400 plus since 2007. So I think the schools have got a role to play.
Thank you. Calvin, I don't know if you want to say anything, because I know that you're the county councillor for the area. I know it very well.
Yeah, well, obviously you do, yes. Yeah, yes, to the extent that the schools do have a role to play, and yes, I have had conversations at Hearts and Essex to encourage them to work on their action plan for active travel. But obviously they're an academy, so I can't force them to do that. I can encourage them to do that. Also worked with Hockrell, where there are a lot of concerns about walking to and from the school across that junction, because Hockrell Junction really is very poor for walking. So yes, working with them to see if we can improve that so that there isn't such a demand for people to go by car, because obviously if there isn't a safe walking route, then parents will tend to use the car instead.
Thank you. Chris, have you got a supplementary on that one?
Just to reiterate to the question of whether there is any evidence that there's a lot of motor traffic to and from Stansted Airport through places like Bishop Stortford and Sawbridgeworth, because I would have said there probably wasn't, because people come to Stansted Airport from all sorts of places. And actually there's fairly good public transport, certainly train-wise, from London and through Stortford and Sawbridgeworth.
Well, there's something we can agree on, Chris. The Stansted Airport, as well as the peak hours for Stansted Airport currently are sort of early morning, 4 o'clock through to about sort of 8 o'clock. Yeah, and again late in the evening. But what does happen is that there are a lot of taxis that go backwards and forwards. Now, the good thing about the taxis at the airport, they're all Euro 6 engine vehicles. They're all compatible with ULEZ and they get renewed every 3 years. Yeah. So, and as I said, we've now got the strictest taxi policy in sort of the county, and the taxis, our taxis would go through there as well, Hockerell, to get to the airport from the town. So there's been a lot happening out there, behaviour change again, people getting different types of vehicles, getting rid of all the vehicles, etc., etc. The buses every sort of 12 minutes, well, I say up to every 12 minutes. I take on board what you say about congestion, but the when the application for Stansted Airport to expand up to £43 million, County Council tried to sort of get some Section 106 or whatever for the impact in Bishop Stortford and the county of Hertfordshire. And when you looked at it and the times, the impact was minimal and we didn't have a window of opportunity to get that type of money. So whilst there's a lot of traffic generated going to and from the sort of airport, I don't think it's sort of peak hours, that type of thing. Yeah.
Next question.
In terms of the long-awaited cycle route through the Meads in Bishop Stortford through Grange Paddocks, can you give an update on how this is progressing and when we can hope to see it realised?
Right, yes. Interesting question. Discussions with HCC have continued over the last few months. However, there's a funding shortfall. Cost estimates to date suggest that delivery costs are likely to approach £1 million. With current Section 106 funds held totaling £400,605. So we've only got 4/10 of the cost. Outstanding finance would need to be secured through external sources, utilising the existing Section 106 as match funding. But I think officers are now looking more towards active travel when they apply for Section 106, and cycleways and walking sort of right up at the top now, whereas in the past it may not have been.
Supplementary, or do you want to move to? No, I think is this your final one? No, there's still more. Is that all right?
Just keep going.
Can you explain why the LC whip has been started so late in East Herts, missing out on crucial funding that other districts and boroughs in Hertfordshire have been able to benefit from due to having their LC whip in place earlier?
Could I ask you a question?
Not sure that's how it works, but
You say other districts and boroughs. Who did you have in mind?
my understanding was Welling and Hatfield and Stevenage had already had their LC whips completed for a start.
Right. Okay. There's only a couple that's actually got LC whips, 2 or 3. And they've just recently got them all sort of January 2022 sort of onwards. I think Stevenage has got to go through another LC whip because it wasn't sort of done sort of whatever. So we really haven't lost out because the other ones are in the same as us. They've started the process. There are other ones that's going through a consultation at the moment. So as far as losing out funding, I don't think we have. Because one of the challenges we've got that whenever we apply for grants, we're not a Leeds, we're not a Birmingham, we're not a London. We don't have the capacity, the number of cyclists that's gone from point A to point B to actually get all this. And that's one of the disadvantages of being in a rural district council. And a number of us have spoken to ministers and all sorts of people to try and get this policy changed. It's not just on sort of grant funding for cycling, it's on EV charging infrastructure, it's across the whole board. So yeah, we are, you could say, poor paupers.
Yeah, I was just thinking back, during COVID, I was in the same role that Graham is in now at county. And because of COVID, there was a lot of attention paid to encouraging active travel. And so money was provided by the government. And of course, then officers had to look through at the places, as Graham has quite rightly said, where can infrastructure be appropriately positioned? And it's going to be in the bigger towns, the Hemels, the Watford, St Albans, Stevenage, where there is actually more capacity and the impact would be greater. And I think, again, that's one of the issues we'll chase. So the money that's been filtering through up until now hasn't necessarily because anybody's got an LC whip. It's because the funding was from government funding during that time. And it's sort of been implemented during that period. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Yeah. And a new policy has just come out from government. They've now stipulated that the LC whip is important in getting funding or applying for funding. Yeah. And that just come out sort of the early part of this year, the latter part of last year. So, yeah.
You happy with that?
So my comeback would be just really that places like Watford, for example, do already have the tube and the train with much better connections than we do, and it should be at a point of need. And if we've got an AQMA in 3 different towns, you could argue there's more of a need here to develop sustainable transport where we have very little compared to other places.
I don't dispute that, but the criteria the government put out dictates that it doesn't come to East Hearts, it goes to other areas. And we can't compete with that. You know, there's strict criteria. Yeah.
Thank you. Next question.
Do you think that cyclists and more journeys by bike represent a danger to pedestrians and road safety, or do you welcome the chance to promote and realise more sustainable journeys?
Yeah. With careful planning, utilising the LC whip and planning process, cycle routes can be made as safe as possible. Yes to welcoming the chance to promote and realise more sustainable journeys, but accidents happen by sort of human beings or whatever. It's very difficult. Yeah, I wouldn't say that more cyclists make it more dangerous or whatever. Everybody's, you know, we've got the highway code. There's new rules come out, so yeah.
Yep. Next one.
Are you confident that officers and members involved in planning decisions are correctly applying NPPF 32 development should only be prevented or refused on transport grounds where the residual cumulative impacts of development are severe? The reason this question is because the key word here is cumulative, because individually I think each development around Bishop Stortford, Sawbridgeworth, etc. could argue that the effects aren't severe, but I think cumulatively, as we've seen from recent transport study, that it's almost certain that they are.
Right. In short, yes. The part of the NPPF is routinely considered when assessing major planning applications, and the Highway Authority will also be consignant of it when providing their comments on such applications.
Happy? Yeah. Next one.
The recent transport assessment provided by, I'm guessing here, Canaparo Associates as part of City Heart's planning application for Old River Lane states the results of the wider junction capacity assessment work demonstrate that the proposed development will not have a material impact on the operation of the local highway network, although highlights that a number of junctions will run over capacity, even if the development does not come forward. Does this not demonstrate that existing and planned developments have had a severe impact on traffic levels, and that therefore these developments have affected pollution levels at Hockrell, and at the very least kept the junction as an AQMA?
Right, thank you. I refer members to the Bishop Stortford graph that presented earlier. It's a traffic issue more than pollution, and the graph demonstrates there is not a correlation between growth and pollution.
You're happy with that?
So are you accepting that traffic has increased in a severe way?
Yeah, and as I'm saying, the graph demonstrates there's not a correlation between growth and pollution, and it's more a traffic issue than pollution.
Yep. Next question.
Do we have data from the locations where the NOx tubes, NOx tubes have been placed? Have they been placed in locations where queuing approaching the sites of the AQMAs is frequently evident?
Data as to the location of the NOx tubes is available on our website, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah. The location of the NOx tubes has been carefully considered to allow the council to monitor air quality with regards to our air quality management areas, and also potential new developments across the district, such as in Buntingford. Traffic and pollution levels are monitored both within the AQMA boundaries and outside of these. Data has shown that despite queuing at some times of the day, the pollution levels are not exceeded outside of the current AQMA boundaries, and therefore there is no need to extend the current boundary.
Chris, yep. Next one.
The SEA regulations require that the responsible authority that shall monitor the significant environmental effects of the implementation of each plan or programme with the purpose of identifying unforeseen adverse effects at an early stage and being able to undertake remedial action. Given the transport assessment from Canapara Associates, is it fair to say that our monitoring, particularly in the absence of live air pollution monitoring at Silverworth and Bishop Stortford, has been less than adequate?
As previously mentioned, no significant changes in air pollution have been highlighted as a result of these new developments. The overall trend has been one of decline.
Happy?
Yeah, again, just to say that I'm still concerned because of the fact that we've got data from the pandemic years and not the year after. So I'm still waiting to.
But it's not just pandemic years, it's gone back to in the graphs to 2013, it showed a decline. It's not,
but
there has been a decline.
But during the recent years, what we've had is a very large increase in the amount of housing, which we've not been able to measure against pollution because of the pandemic years has coincided with that increase. So we haven't yet had a year when we've had no pandemic and a big increase in housing. Without that, we cannot say that it definitely has not had an effect.
There has been an increase in housing year on year. I've got the figures for year on year, which I can distribute afterwards. But the developments have carried on unabated, and the air pollution has improved year by year as per the graph from 2013-14 on a steady downward spiral.
And I accept what you're saying, except that the massive increase of housing has gone up a lot more in the recent years.
I don't dispute there'll be ripples in the way, but the trend is downward. And it is very evident from the graphs that it is downward.
Okay, thank you. Chris, is this the last question?
In the opinion of the Executive Member for Planning and Growth, is adopting SIL, the Community Infrastructure Levy, a more efficient method than Section 106 of obtaining funding for big ticket items and ensuring that it isn't only localised areas around developments that profit from developers' contributions?
Jan?
Thank you. Under the current system of developer contributions, all local authorities can use discretionary Section 106 planning obligations to secure mitigations for development. In addition, all local authorities can charge a SIL, and around half of them do. The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill is now seeking to replace the current system of developer contributions with a mandatory, more streamlined and locally determined infrastructure levy. Consultation on this ends on the 9th of June.
Chris, got supplementary or? Yeah.
Thank you. Could you just remind me of the name of that bill again? Sorry.
The Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill.
Right, thank you. We'll let you have a rest now, Chris. Thank you very much for that. Now for the open session, if any members have any questions, I'm sure, Chris, you may have some more, but I will come back to you at the end just to allow others to have a say. I can see some hands up, so I'll do it anti-clockwise from David.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for Councillor Horner. Has the county council member for the Hockley area. You cover both district wards to make that up. I'm sure you've been very busy on various issues around highways and other county-related issues. Could you maybe just give us an overview of what you've done over the past couple of years in terms of traffic monitoring studies, looking at interventions on that junction, or anything else that you think would benefit there, and just focusing on what you've done? Thank you.
Calvin?
Okay, thank you. As I alluded earlier, I think one of the major issues that we have there is that it is not a good junction for pedestrians and for going across there. So that is really a focus, so that we can move more towards active transport, sustainable transport. So in terms of studies on that and using Section 106 monies for that, and for a remodeling of the junction to see what can be done there, and there are Section 106 monies available, so it's lobbying to get those. At the same time, looking at whether there are ways in which both the traffic management through the computer system, whether that can be upgraded. So I'll ask questions about that, looking at studies on that, looking at studies on the use of changing the priorities with regard to right-hand turns and things of that sort. And clearly there are a lot of issues around that, because that might then move where the congestion, where the air quality issues are around the town. So Hockrell is a very difficult area because of the constraints around that junction. But it's looking to see what small changes can be made within the whole highway network in Bishop Stortford.
Thank you. I believe the previous county council did do some surveys. Hopefully they were passed on to you.
Indeed, they were. Some of those surveys did not, unfortunately, did not provide the answers that the previous county council, I'm sure, would have liked, in terms of the surveys looked at particular journeys that were being taken. Some of the issues that were raised were things that would require investment in other parts of the network rather than just at Hockrell, and some of the major journeys, particularly from the south through Hockrell, weren't actually covered by those studies, unfortunately.
Thank you. David, have you got a supplementary to that? No.
So just to clarify, so there's nothing actually imminent that's going to be done by county highways or anything that you've secured on the Hockley junction?
At the present time, feasibility studies and studies are ongoing. There is not something that I can tell you is going to be done immediately. What I can tell you with regard to monitoring of air pollution is that the county council will be putting in some monitoring at that junction. I've been told that in the very near future.
Thank you. Ian Kemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to thank Councillor McAndrew for his presentation at the beginning, showing the data from those air quality monitors, which was particularly interesting. I'm afraid that's sparked off a few questions in my mind, so I apologise for these not having been done in advance. Certainly agree that there is clear evidence there was a downward trend broadly from 2013 to 2019. Beyond that, I have to agree with Councillor Wilson that we can't really draw any conclusions because the pandemic has such an effect on the numbers, because they're only there for 2020 and 2021. I noticed that the air quality annual status report for all the all the tubes on the website actually only goes up to 2020, so we don't have the individual data figures there for 2021, although we have the summary trends. I'd like to know when the 2021 figures will be published. And the other big question I think that's coming in my mind is the Gascoigne Way dynamic monitor, which obviously is very important because that is the only dynamic monitor that we've got at the moment. I don't see any figures for that anywhere. And I'm assuming that those would not need to be adjusted in the same way, and those would be extremely valuable, as they would be the ones that do actually potentially give us some results for 2022 and the early part of 2023, and might show what the more recent trend is. Regarding Gascoigne Way itself, it's interesting to see that the figures on that are a bit lower, in fact, than other parts of Hertford, notably Old Cross and West Street, which seem to be the highest ones, and also in some ways follow a different trend. And I'm wondering, just like confirmation, that those figures are actually due to the tubes and that there isn't the dynamic air quality unit rolled into it. I accept those are somewhat technical questions and they may not be answerable on the spot, in which case I'd be happy to accept a written answer, but any that can be answered now can help.
Yeah, I don't know if officers want to try. It's probably more a technical thing.
Can I just mention on the graph, I think we all agree that it's a downward spiral of trend. Traffic movements of late have changed from the normal pre-COVID. Take, for example, Sobridgeworth and Bishop's Stortford, the impact on that. The junction 7A of the M11 opened last year, and it's taken traffic away from Bishop's Stortford, going up through Hockrell, and some of the traffic now joins the 7A on the M11 instead of having to go through there. We've also got the roadworks at junction 8 of the M11 for the Stansted crossing, which has caused quite a lot of chaos and roundabout Bishop's Stortford, to say the least. And I don't think, I did get in contact with the Essex officer who's in charge of the junction 7A, M11 and junction 8 roadworks. And he said he couldn't actually monitor how the flow of traffic has changed, because as soon as they opened the junction 7A of the M11, they started work on junction 8. And if you see what I mean. So it won't be until that actually is up and running, and they collate the traffic flows roundabout, that we'll understand what's actually going on. But if on the technical side of and I do agree that there could be blips in the way. I fully, ripples on the way. But I don't know
Do officers want to try and answer the technical ones? I appreciate it might be too technical to answer off the top of your head.
Okay, so as for the data for the continuous air quality monitor in Hertford, there is a link on our website that takes you to the Air Quality England website, which shows you the latest up-to-date data for that monitor, and you can draw graphs on it. You can go back as far as you want. And that's we'll find it and send a link.
Yeah, if you could
link.
send it, because I don't think it makes very good council meeting someone. No, that's fine. That's fine. We will get you the information sent. Eric, you wanted to say something?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Can you make
it
sure
is.
you use your microphone, Ian? Sorry, so as people can hear you. Eric.
Thanks, Jim. Just following on from what Graham was saying about the new junctions and the work on junction 8. As somebody who lives in the south side of Sawbridgeworth, I can tell you that for me, it's effectively a Sawbridgeworth and Bishop's Stortford bypass, because I can get to a place like Dunmow now in 20 minutes from where I live. And I don't have to go through Hockrell. I don't have to go around the St James Way or anything like that. What we don't know, of course, is where people are then coming off at that junction and then thinking, well, I can get to Bishop's Stortford South or any of these other places. So it's difficult to really assess. But as Graham was saying, once junction 8 is finished, I think we get a much better idea. But it's a really positive move to have that junction. Works really well.
Thank you. Ian Devonshire.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to ask Councillor McAndrew, to encourage EV usage, I believe we need faster EV chargers in East Herts. I've got two questions. When will the BP ultra fast charger come online in Buntingford? And are we going to see an increase to the speed of East Hart's EV chargers? Because I believe all of these East Hart's EV chargers are only 7 kilowatts, which is extremely slow. Thank you.
Thank you. Very important questions. The ultra chargers at Pontingfoot, as you well know, has been there since May last year. I believe the power has now been connected up to them. There's 8 of them. And I popped in November and they said it would be December. I popped in December, they said it would be January. I popped in January, they said it would be February. I popped in February and they said it would be March. Do you want me to carry on? Yeah. So I believe it's a power problem. I believe the electorates have been connected up, but I'm not sure if the substation has got enough power to feed the whatever. I've tried to get the information out of the station manager, but he's not aware of what's going on. Yeah. Now, as far as EV chargers are concerned, I agree 7.5 or 7.1 are not the right chargers. They are the right chargers for overnight charging. I just had a meeting with Bishop Stortford South, the employment area, last week with the Bishop Stortford Climate Group, and we were on about various energy bits and pieces, solar panels, feeding chargers, etc., etc. And I think they were looking at putting in 7.6, 7.5 kilowatt chargers. I've asked them to revisit that and have a couple of 22 kilowatt chargers put in. I fully appreciate that the world has moved on. There's bigger batteries in vehicles. They can download power more quickly, etc., etc. And just going into, so I've had a conversation with Jess on Northgate End car park that we need to look at converting some of the 7.5 kilowatt chargers, if possible, into 22 kilowatt chargers. I've also asked them to look at removing the 5-hour restriction for electric vehicles to be connected up to the chargers and the car parks, then move on. I feel with 54 parking spaces allocated for EV chargers that they can have all day charging as long as they pay the car park charges. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but we at East Hart, sorry, right, let's move on. Before I hand over to Jonathan, who may be able to give an update on where East Hart is, we've identified our national supplier who will look at our premises, car parks, etc., maybe parish councils, and understand what type of chargers need to go in each one. Through chair of the Hertfordshire Climate Change Sustainability Partnerships, one of the key things that I was looking at prior to when I was looking after licensing 4 years ago was EV charging infrastructure and how we can convert taxi drivers into electric vehicles. But and the main thing that come out was that there was no infrastructure, and if they delivered somebody to an airport, that they couldn't be guaranteed to get a recharge, etc. So through the HCCSP, Hertfordshire Climate Change Sustainability Partnership, I'm pleased to say that last week there was a paper that was passed by all 10 district boroughs, county council and the LEP to move forward with identifying how we could put in taxi EV infrastructure throughout the county of Hertfordshire, whatever that may be look like, I don't know. And the low emission policy, we've done the same with all 10 district boroughs. So it's a question of how we actually move forward. There's a lot happening on the active travel, but Jonathan, do you want to sort of expand on where you are with this company that's looking at the charging infrastructure?
Very briefly, really, just to add to what Councillor McAndrew has said, we're on the brink of, we've spec'd up, seeking a partner to essentially at no cost to ourselves to survey all our public car parks and a selection of village halls and parish council car parks to install chargers all across the district. Within that spec, we have this goes to the heart of Councillor Devonshire's point. We have specifically itemised that we would be looking for a number, and we talk that through, which are rapid chargers. That's where we need to get to. There is clearly a need for fast chargers where people can't plug in at home. That's fine, but there are the more rapid when people are going to a destination, top up for a few hours, and both those are included within that spec. So I think that is we're on the absolute verge of about to put that out.
Thank you very much. Are you happy with that, Ian?
Yeah, that's all good news. I mean, personally, I think in Northgate End, for instance, you should have put more 22 kilowatt chargers in and less 7 kilowatts, because 7 kilowatts in a car park is useless, really, unless you're going to be staying there for all day. It doesn't give you much at all. It gives you about 20 miles an hour. You have to plug in for an hour, you get about 20 miles. So. But 22 kilowatt chargers would 3 times the speed, so obviously much better. Thank you. Thanks for that answer.
Noted. Marnie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think even if there is being a reduction in levels of air pollution at the moment, and if that's true, I would be very pleased, we do still have significant levels of air pollution, and these are a real risk to people's health. And I do think that we do need to take more urgent action. And I've noticed in our report, in section 4.4, it does say that at this moment, we do not have a proper air quality action plan. The one we've been working to apparently expired in 2020, and we haven't got a new one yet. And I think we really do need to have this. I notice that apparently this council is employing a specialist company, Bureau Veritas, to assist with the creation of a new air quality action plan. And this company was appointed a year ago. So my question is, how is this company getting on? And when are we likely to see the new action plan, which would demonstrate that we're really taking this question and this topic and this health risk, that we're taking it really seriously?
I think they're getting on quite well. They've done a draft policy with our partners over the action plan. It's got to go out, and more beef has got to be put in the bone, I think, but they're doing really well. Now, you mentioned in 4.4, I think that was of the report, if I remember correctly, is that where we explained why the air quality action plan hadn't been completed?
Oh, yes, because of COVID, and I understand that, and I don't blame anybody. But now that we're through the pandemic, I think it is important that we pick up where we left off and we move urgently and quickly. That's why, well, we haven't been told that there is a new action plan yet. We haven't seen it. And this company was appointed a whole year ago. So when will we see it?
The last slide that I presented was all about the air quality action plan and the time process. Do you not recall? Yeah.
The blue line, yes.
I'm sure if we could send all that out to members so that they've got the
the
information
presentation will
afterwards.
be sent out.
Yeah. You're happy with those answers, Marnie?
I can go through the, just bear with me. The new air quality action plan, it's going to be to the exec by early 2024, then sent to DEFRA for approval, and it's going to be approved by DEFRA, the executive member, through delegated authority, etc. So April 2023, the draft air quality action plan. Then on May 2023, it's public consultation air quality action plan. September 2023, overview and scrutiny review. and January 2024 executive approval. I mean, can we pull the slide up again? Can we, or do you want to see the slide again?
No, thank you. I hear what you say, but
Yeah.
it seems 2024, that's a long time away, and I find it very frustrating.
It's a
that the
democratic
party-
process. I can't shorten that.
Well, I still think it's very frustrating. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really, I was looking across on the sustainability action plan, the environmental action plan. I can see the link. That's really good to see that the development of the action plan, Marnie, that I think you're talking about, is on the breakdown of the action plan for the climate change strategy that's going on as well. But I think that that's where I'd really like to see it, because in our climate change strategy that was approved and that has come through, one of the things that was said is that we can use our powers when it comes to planning, for instance, to make sure that we can uphold all opportunities for sustainability within the district. It strikes me that maybe this is one of those things like the planning SPD, the sustainability planning SPD, that was going to be reviewed when it comes to the district plan as well. If maybe this air quality action plan can be built into the district plan as well, to maintain that we're drawing everything together. Because one thing I've noticed in the discussions is there is a little bit around here about language of there's not a huge amount that we can do. We need behavior change, and we need to sort of get everyone working together to move forward. If we can build it into our planning, and we can build it into the agreements in that way as well, then surely that does give the teeth that we can then have those measurements coming through all the time and bring that pollution down.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, Dan. Thank you for that. I've had numerous discussions with county council officers, planning, active travel, local transport plan, schools, cycling, etc. One of the things I've managed to do is that when the district plan is up for review, what normally happens with the district plan is officers at East Hants District Council sit down, create that district plan. It then goes out to consultation with county council and everybody else. So what's going to happen, and we've been liaising between county and district council officers, it makes sense for the county council officers to be in at the very beginning and create that plan and move it forward, because you've got the local transport plan, you've got active travel, cycling, etc., etc. And I think if we all sort of take a step back and realise that when the last district plan was put in place, we didn't envisage that we'd be probably speaking about what we are now a few years on, and we've really moved sort of forward. So there's a lot going to sort of happen with the review of the district plan. Yeah.
You happy with that?
You're quite right. It's all got to come into, each document's got to fit in with the other.
Eric.
Yeah, I was only going to add there's a dedicated team at county,
Yeah.
the Leeds team. Can't remember what the acronym stands for entirely, but it's all of the elements around sustainability, and they are there to offer advice to districts and boroughs.
Okay. But I have got one, it's not so much a question, but a comment. Certainly people in Bishop Stortford, if they've ever been to Dunmow recently, will see that there is a massive expansion in Dunmow. Dunmow doesn't have a railway station, so I'm convinced that people will come to Bishop Stortford and they will drive down through Hockrell to get to the railway station. And I know there was a survey done some time ago that said that the people out of town were actually, it was quite a high number of people out of town who were coming to Bishop Stortford railway station. I think we missed a massive chance when the spur to Stansted Airport was put in. We should have ploughed it straight on through Dunmow, possibly to Braintree. It doesn't have to be heavy duty rail track, because it won't be taking any sort of cargo, etc. It would just be passenger trains. So I think the next council needs to seriously push for this extension of the railway, because I think that will certainly help the traffic in Bishop Stortford. And hopefully the county councillors could be pushing Essex County Council as well. I know Bishop Stortford Town Council some time ago tried to get the thing off the ground, and there was a lot of support for it. Then COVID came But I think if the next council could be looking at that, I think it would certainly be beneficial to any sort of problems that we have on Hockrell. So it's a comment. There's nothing we can do about it. But I'm sure if we can build HS2, we can put a few miles of railway track and extend it along. Eric, did you want to come? No, sorry, it was Bob.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. With your permission, I just wanted to, like you, make a comment. I just wanted to go back to the schools issue. I'd like to associate myself with the notion that schools definitely have a role to play in this. I have quite a lot of stuff in my postbag about traffic and parking and driving issues that relate to schools. They do have a part to play. It was a point, funny enough, Chris, that came up in relation to Hertford bypass. And I claim no credit for this observation at all. It was a mum. And a mum made the point that a bypass will have absolutely no effect on school mum, parent traffic. Schools are inside the town. People basically live where they live. Bypass would be utterly irrelevant, but of course cost hundreds of millions of pounds. So that was one of the points that came up. But definitely schools have a part to play. If I might say through you, Chair, I would be very, very happy if this council, and indeed any other relevant council, would write to schools to emphasise that they do have a role to play in the subject matter of this evening.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Fair point. Ian Kemp, I saw your hand up.
Yes, commenting on your point about the railway from Stansted to Dunmow. Of course, the railway along there did exist, but it disappeared as early as 1953 and has now turned into a rather nice walk. But I'm a member of Rail Future and have been for many years. And unfortunately, reinstating railways that are along routes that are not already there as freight lines is incredibly slow and incredibly expensive. And there's a great shortage of money for it. So even if it was to be pushed and accepted right from the word go, you're talking about something that's 10, maybe 20 years in the future at huge cost. What I would say, however, is that there are often more practical implementable alternatives. I have a friend who lived for years in Dunmow and worked in Bishop Stortford, and who would willingly have travelled by bus into her work in Bishop Stortford, but she couldn't because there was, believe it or not, no direct bus service from Dunmow to Bishop Stortford, and still is not. Everything went via Stansted, and you had to change at Stansted. And it's incredible to think of that lack of joined up thinking from Dunmow to the natural centre nearby. And looking at those sorts of things, and okay, it requires some cooperation between different councils, but there are opportunities there that could be implemented much faster and at a obviously much lower cost than ideas in the future for railways. And I commend that to the potential of county council as well, particularly as there are other routes entirely within Hertfordshire that could be done in the same way. Just to take one off the top of my head, Buntingford, no rail station, lots of people trying to commute, yet nobody has ever thought of putting in a commuter bus service straight from Buntingford down to Broxbourne, which is the quickest, really good mainline station. And that's where lots of people are already driving and parking in the car park.
No, thank you for that. And I think it's a very valid point. I was also going to mention Buntingford. I thought I know our colleagues in Buntingford would flag up that they didn't have a railway station. I hear what you're saying about possibly 10 years, but every day we delay it, it's another day that's added on to the 10 years. I think we have to try and push for it and accept that in the meantime, we may have to have bus services. It's not something that this council can do, but we can certainly be pushing for it in the future.
Yeah, what I would say is nationally, however, it is likely to be an enormously long way down a very long list of possible reinstatements.
Yeah, but there's no harm in trying. But Graham, you wanted to
Can
say
I
something?
just mention, County Council are as privileged to have our cycleway being put in Buntingford, London Road. So things are happening up in
Excellent,
Buntingford.
good. Thank you very much, James.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. It's just so as a I think I feel the need to just sort of jump in as a teacher to say that schools are very aware of the need to be sustainable, and we are doing everything that we possibly can to get our young people to know how important the future is and how to do it. So with the greatest of respect, I don't think a letter is going to necessarily help on that way. I feel the need just to defend us a little bit. Yeah.
Do you want to just come back? I don't think it's the kids as much as the mums and dads. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Are there any other questions? Chris?
Yeah, sorry, not 17 this time. Firstly, have we managed to and can we enforce against HGVs that go into AQMA areas that are not allowed to do so by legislation, and what are the drawbacks or possibilities of being able to do that?
HGVs, as you're fully aware, there's HGV prohibition signs up round all the roads round about Hockrell. It's a police matter, and for that heavy goods vehicle, if it's driving through that area without offloading, where it's entitled to, if it drives straight through, it has got to be monitored that it is driven straight through before the police can actually action that. So it's a police matter.
Thank you. Chris, any other questions?
This is more to Councillor Goody. Are you content that policy DPS 4 in the district plan, which lays out the mitigating measures needed to protect the town centres in the towns where the AQMAs are located, has correctly been applied, has been applied correctly? This policy includes provision of a Hertford bypass, upgrades to the rail network, and measures to facilitate sustainable transport.
I think we already covered the Hertford bypass. As Councillor Deering was saying, that would be something that would benefit people that don't live in Hertford, really, not the residents of Hertford, and therefore it didn't have the support of the residents.
And the other two, upgrades to the rail network and measures to facilitate sustainable transport. Do you think they've been adequately done?
I think a lot of these things we can only influence. We can't compel.
Okay.
Bob.
Just with my chairman of the planning committee hat on, I've got no sense at all that officers do not, in any respect, apply the MPPF improperly. I think we're well served by our officers.
This was DPS 4 from the district plan, not.
It's similar point. I think we're very well served by our officers. Thank you.
Have you got
One final thing is the county council policy on travel effectively the worst of both worlds, with car travel being discouraged by congestion, but with no easy alternative method of travel in place for many journeys?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
So what I'm saying is that there are measures in place to try and prioritise other methods of travel. That's the policy, as I understand it, from the county council. But in effect, we haven't got measures in place, at least in East Herts, that enable people to do that or facilitate those journeys that are alternative to the car journey. So you end up with an awful lot more congestion, an awful lot more trouble for car journeys, trying to encourage people out of the cars because of that, but then there's no real alternative for many people to complete their journeys.
The county council have just employed 5 behavioural scientists. Yeah, that's how serious they're actually taking this. And it's all about behaviour change. So they're looking at all the different policies at county council, looking at what's on the website, they're looking at messages that's communicated to the general public. At the Jim McManus last week at Stevenage, which myself and Calvin attended, did a talk on behaviour change and how his behaviour change scientists are involved in various different fields. And that's a crunch of it. You look at how many people within an hour, within a mile, they jump in the car and drive somewhere. They've got to have the mindset that if they've got a polluting car, polluting vehicle, why don't they walk if they're able to walk? Why don't they leave the car home? Why don't they cycle? there's all sorts of different ways that this can be done. But it'd be interesting, whilst you are saying some things don't work, what is it you feel that could work? So we could sort of.
I think what I'm saying is that if you look at studies about improving sustainable transport and modal shift, then there are certain things that councils can do and which the county council has not done to encourage that. So, for example, I walk everywhere pretty much and get public transport. I don't drive. I can say that this is a very difficult place to walk in, and it does not encourage people to walk when, for example, you've got the budget, I don't know if the budget or whether whatever happens, that walkways, pedestrian routes are not maintained very well in many places. There's not pavement in some places in Bishop Stortford, for example. There's lots of things, part of the infrastructure that would discourage people. If you just listen to people talk about cycling, many would cycle, but they don't because they feel it's dangerous. So this LC whip, etc., and all the different paths, cycle paths that we need are needed to facilitate that behavioural change. So behavioural change, yes, you do need to change people's attitudes, but the biggest change to someone's attitude is to make it easier to be able to go from A to B.
Yeah, you're quite right. But to make things easier, it costs money. Money that we don't have, money that East South doesn't have, money that County Council doesn't have. We depend on grants from the government. And if you take a step back, Bishop Stortford, Hertford, Ware, old Roman towns, narrow streets, Hertford and Bishop Stortford especially. Calvin mentioned about Hockrell, safe access and egress. He wants to see pedestrians sort of walking in pavements. Now, if we look at Hockrell, it's a narrow road, narrow pavements. If you make the pavements wider, you make the roads narrower. You introduce level crossings, that's really good. What happens when you introduce level crossings or pedestrian crossings? Traffic lingers longer, pollutes more. The type, we're not in London, big wide streets where you can do all sorts of things. We've got to accept the fact where we are, the infrastructure that we've got, and what we can actually do with it. Now, we talked earlier about going from one end of the town through Meads to Grange Paddock, a cycleway. It's been going on for a number of years. It's been going on longer than that because I was chair of the Castle Park when we were getting it ready for the presentation to the lottery fund to gain funding. And one of the things I wanted was a 4 metre wide cycleway through there. Got a 3 metre wide one or whatever it is. But we are now many, many years on and we haven't got the funds to do it. Now, I can't. Nobody in this room can actually magic funds from central government to do this. We've got to understand that. But if anybody does know where we can get these funds from, we can actually do something. But unless we've got the funds, we can't do anything.
Thank you.
Sorry, there's others.
No, I will. I was just going to quickly jump in and say certainly Bishop Stortford members will remember 4 years ago, Bishop Stortford Town Council ran the Stortford Shuttle. It was a service that went from Thorley to the train station. We even made it free for some weeks and we still couldn't get people on it. And I remember one gentleman saying he got on the shuttle, but his wife drove to the station because she preferred going in her car. And that it's getting that mindset of people to get them out of their cars. It's easy to put a bus on, but if the bus is having nobody in it, you've just added to the pollution. And as I say, we actually made it free for about 3 or 4 weeks, and we still couldn't get people to get onto the thing.
Yeah, and we also had the park and ride in Bishop Stortford as well, and that stopped because nobody used it.
Yeah, so I don't want to go on too long, but I know Eric and Bob want to come in, then I'll come back to you, Chris.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to what I said earlier about the growth and transport plans, where a tremendous amount of work has already been done. That's part of the local transport plan. I think that's changing its name soon. But if you go on the county website and look those up for whichever area you're in, you can actually see the type of interventions that are suggested. And as Graham's saying, and I've said earlier, the capacity to put big cycle lanes in between our market towns just isn't there. But there is the capacity to actually make it slightly easier. So there are places where you can cycle between towns, and it's around making adjustments to those to make it safer. It's looking at junctions. It's looking at directional signs so that there may be places within the towns, alternative routes to taking the main roads. And it could well be that the biggest impact we can have is actually, rather than cycling, is actually on walking and having pram crossings and the ability for people with disabilities to cross more easily, having pedestrian crossings at junctions, different types of crossings. There are so many different things in there. So I would recommend to everybody to have a look at that, because it's an enormous body of work. But as Graham says, it then comes down to funding, some of which can come from Section 106 contributions. I know Sawbridgeworth is getting some money from villages 1 to 6 from Gilston over a period of years, which will then be used for walking and cycling. And there'll be other situations like that. And then, as we've discussed with the growth and transport plans in conjunction with the LC WIP, gives us the ability to apply for funding. And I'm sure those areas that have the air quality management areas within them are going to be the priorities, because those are the places that we want to look at. So there's a lot of work done, a lot of detail, but have a look, everyone. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Chairman. Coming back to the question, which effectively was, is the county council's transport plan making things worse? My emphatic answer to that is no. I think it's extremely laudable of the county council to headline modal shift. I think you've only got to stand it on its head and ask yourself what you would think of the county council if it announced that they weren't really bothered about modal shift. I think it's highly praiseworthy that the county council is headlining modal shift, and I can assure you that there are a raft of officers in the county council who are committed to modal shift. The trick is it's just a bit difficult to deliver. And if you take our market towns, and as you know, I'm from Hertford, they are what they are, and they've been in existence for hundreds of years, and you can't just cut a swathe through them to put bicycle lanes in. But where the funding exists, if you look around East Herts, you'll see that things are happening. So the Gilston project, as I think everybody in this room knows, sustainability is central to the Gilston project. I think you may have acknowledged that yourself in your opening remarks. The opportunity is there to do that. If you go to good old Buntingford and drive into Buntingford off the A10, you've only got to see the work that's been done to effect narrow the road and put broad pavements and cycleways in. I'm guessing that's been funded by Section 106. If you drop down to Broxbourne, quite close to the site of what used to be, what still is Broxbourne School, there's some very interesting work being done there to introduce a roundabout and make the roadways appear smaller and appear more neighbourly. And that also clearly is being funded by Section 106. So when the money is there, it gets spent and improvements are made. And speaking personally, I would much rather we have a county council that is headlining modal shift than just runs away from it. It's a very good thing.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to come back quickly?
Yeah, I would say that's more sort of talking the talk than walking the walk in my experience a lot of the time. I agree it should be modal shift policy. I don't think it's being implemented properly. I would question, for example, how much money has been spent on road improvements and bypasses compared to how much money has been spent on cycling and walking, which is the money is where your mouth is, effectively. Second thing I would say is that we talk about narrow streets. Obviously, that is an impediment to improving this modal shift. There's no denying that. But there are things that haven't been done for 20 years that could have been done. Having lived in Stalk for 20 years, you could have had the towpath alongside the river. There must have been money in 20 years to do that could have been accessible by cycle all the way down. You could have had the Grange paddocks, as Graham has mentioned, has been going on for a long time. That could have been done by now. I can say without being involved in politics 20 years ago, I was saying, why the hell isn't there a path through a green area in Bishop Stortford, which is so obvious? And with respect, my final point would be there's a culture change needed amongst the council. In terms of this council, in terms of planning, I would mention two things. Well, maybe one thing. Grange paddocks. If you ever try and walk to Grange paddocks in the dark, it is not something you want to be doing. And that's because when we planned the new Grange paddocks, which is generally a very good thing that we've done, the mindset of people, I do not believe, again, with all respect, is of the mindset of a cyclist or a walker. It's the mindset of a car driver. When everyone here is driving cars everywhere they go to, they don't consider that first, again, respectfully, in my view. As of someone who does walk everywhere, I look at things and go, well, why hasn't this been done and why hasn't that been done? And it feels as if, and you can happily disagree, it feels as if there's a priority given and a thought given first of all to the car, despite intentions, I'm sure, to the opposite.
Thank you very much. Graham, and then I think Eric wanted to come back on something, did you?
Yeah, I've got to disagree. Sorry, did you say me?
Yeah, if Graham and then Eric, if we can keep them short, because I think we've gone into this for some time.
Right, I disagree with Councillor Wilson on the Grange Paddock footpath. The footpath from Bishop Stortford to Grange Paddock has got uplighters. So when you're walking along, I believe the lights light up. Yeah. Now, the reason for that is the habitat. We don't have street lights going down there for the bats and the natural habitat down there. So there's a balance between habitat, natural habitat, and people walking. But the lights are there for when they walk and cycle. So I disagree with what you're saying.
Okay, thank you for that, Eric.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because there was the kind of implication that East Herts misses out on major infrastructure. And I just needed to point out that actually East Herts has had the lion's share of the county's funding on infrastructure, with the A120 bypass, flood alleviation, the A602. It's all been in East Herts. And I won't necessarily give the figure, but it's many, many, many millions of pounds. So it's not the case that East Herts is missing out in any shape or form.
Thank you. I can hear Chris is not happy with the answer, but do you want to quickly say something and then we must move on?
That is not what I said. I said the money's been provided, has been used on road and track solutions for cars, not solutions for bikes and walking. That's my point.
Thank you for that. David, I think you wanted to say no. It is, I think we've done this in depth. I don't think anyone can say that we haven't given it a good sort of kicking around. Does anybody have anything that they feel they must say before? Do any of the county councillors want to say anything before? But if it's quick,
It'll be very quick. I just taking your points, Chris, and you know you have a view. That's fine. I just feel the need to say on behalf of a small army of officers at HCC, they take modal shift very seriously. And if you were ever to come to a planning meeting here, which is attended by a highways officer, you will see firsthand that they are talking the talk on modal shift. It goes into a planning application and they're taking positions on planning applications which are supportive of modal shift and therefore may not be what, you know, the average driver on the streets of East Hertfordshire would really wish them to be saying. And they deserve a lot of credit for that.
I won't comment on Herts County Council highways officers when it comes to planning. Graham.
I think it's disingenuous of Councillor Wilson to say that East Herts hasn't entered into the spirit of sustainability. I think the officers here and throughout the council put in a lot of hard work, and everything they do, planning, it doesn't matter what department, sustainability is at the heart of what they do. So I really feel it's disingenuous.
Okay,
and this
thank
evening,
you.
I think we've proved the point that there's a lot of really good work going on, and just, if you bear with me 1 second.
I was just going to say opinions differ, and I think that's one of the good things that we've had this evening is we've had a good debate.
To say one thing that I've been allowed to a Facebook post that Councillor Wilson made. And he said, I am very disappointed that the report contained in the papers for this meeting states that the pollution levels at Hockrell, as last measured during the pandemic, show that developments have not had a negative effect on air pollution. Councillor Wilson has not welcomed the drop or the improvement in air quality. Councillor Wilson seems to wish that the air pollution gets worse.
I'm
And
gonna
that's
Sorry, I'm not having that.
I'm gonna
I'm
stop
sorry.
you- I'm gonna
I'm
stop
sorry,
you
that's
there. That's-
unacceptable.
That's
I have asthma. I am passionate about changing the air pollution for the better. It affects me personally. I will not have that from you. I'm sorry to
sorry.
raise my voice. I will not have it.
It's
Sorry,
your words. It's your words.
Excuse me,
Councillor
Graham. I
Wilson.
don't think Chris was saying that whatsoever. So I think we may. It's probably now best to finish the meeting. What was going quite well. But I think we've had the majority of the time we've had agreements. We will have differences of opinion, but I think we've given this quite a good. I was going to say quite a good airing, but that's probably not the phrase to use. But thank you, everyone. Can we go to page 51? We have two recommendations that members scrutinise. Yeah, don't put your laptops away yet. We're not finished. There are two recommendations, both say members scrutinise, and I think we can honestly say we have scrutinised it. Are you proposing it, Ian? Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Holly. Any comments? In which case, can we go to the vote that we're happy with the two recommendations? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And the last one, although I do have something to say after this, agenda 9. Lorraine, do you want to quickly?
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, we're
Thank
not finished.
you, Chairman. This is your usual work programme that comes to ONS on every cycle. By way of an update, the head of operations will be reporting in June on the waste shared service client team and corporate service arrangements. As we've just heard this evening, the 21st September work programme will be amended to include a review of the new air quality action plan, which would go on to the executive later. I'll also be following up on an earlier suggestion by members to seek an update on the support for the East Herts Growth Board and the excuse me, and the earlier suggestion for a presentation of a case for additional infrastructure investment in Hertford. Members might recall that HCC requested that this be deferred following a review of HCC priorities. So that's probably to be programmed for the June or the September meeting. The post-district council elections, Democratic Services will be establishing 2 workshops, one with members and one with heads of service to brainstorm topics for further scrutiny for inclusion on the forward plan in the hope that we can get some topics to look at for a year. And in terms of training as part of the induction process, there will be a workshop on the essentials of effective strategic scrutiny, which has been booked with the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny in May this year. And lastly, just wanted to mention something that Councillor Rutland Barsby mentioned at the pre, in that we should be leaving room on the agenda for new items, but we've got to balance this with items that might get delayed. So, you know, just keeping to when we had an earlier review scrutiny about keeping the agenda items to maybe 2 or 3, they might change given delays, additions. So.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's it.
I don't see any hands up, so can I, oh, sorry, Holly.
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is the right part of the meeting to mention this, but I have mentioned this many, many times before, and this evening, the 4 of us have spent 2 hours like this. And so we've effectively been invited here to receive a presentation. Now, if somebody was presenting at the front of the room, nobody would be sat with their back to them. So I understand that the structure of the room has an oval, but in events like this, where that 4 people have been specifically brought here to engage with us, they've engaged with the back of our heads. So could we please have everybody on one side of the room that are part of the scrutiny committee, and then anybody that is there to either present something or be, you know, interacted with is in front of them, because it's really frustrating. I'm sure Mary's had absolutely no interaction with Graham the whole evening.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point. And the other thing is, members, to be polite, we turn our head to talk to someone and the microphone's not picking up. So I'm sure that officers will pick up that for future meetings. If I can take members to page 156, there are 3 recommendations. Could I have a proposer for the recommendations, please? David, seconded. Chris, thank you. Those in favour? That's unanimous, thank you. And before I close the meeting, I would just like to say thank you very much to all the officers. This is the last scrutiny of this council, actually. It's been an enjoyable 4 years. Well, I've enjoyed it. I hope everybody else has as well. I'd like to thank Lorraine for the hard work that she's put in, thank all the other officers. But I'd also like to thank you, the members. I think we have got on reasonably well most of the time. I think we have done a lot of good work. We have put a lot of suggestions in. We've looked at lots of things. And I say, I think we've worked really hard. So thank you very much to officers and to members, and Marnie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would also like to add my thanks to all the officers and to thank you very much for all your chairmanship this year.
Thank you very much. And on that happy note, good evening, everyone. I close the meeting at 9:05.